Hey guys, Political Junkie 2414 here, and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be releasing my updated prediction for the 2024 US House of Representatives elections, and going over each and every race, not in depth because there's so many to cover, and these videos are long enough with brief introductions anyway. We have to go around the whole country and look at multiple districts, but it's been about 6 months since my last one. I think it was the end of February when I made my last one. So yeah, roughly half a year ago, was my first prediction, and I'm going to be making an updated prediction because some things have changed, and we have some redistricting news that will affect these races. So. If you enjoy content like this and you want to see more, make sure to like the video, hit subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and share this video with someone who you think would appreciate it or enjoy it. So yeah, now let's get a good background of where the House stands right now. Obviously, Republicans control it. They won control of it in 2022, but by a much smaller margin than most people expected. It was smaller than I expected. I think my final prediction was like 226 Republicans to 209 Democrats, so I wasn't necessarily that far off, but a lot of my mistakes, a lot of my, the districts that I got wrong canceled each other out. Most of them, I thought most of my mistakes were, in districts that I thought would go Republican, but actually went Democratic. And but there were some in New York and California that bucked that trend and actually went Republican despite my prediction having it going Democratic. And you can see here that Republicans did win the House popular vote by 3 points, despite having a pretty underwhelming performance, and that was mainly because of their strong performances in California and New York, which are very populated states, and gave them a lot of room, to win the House. If they had lost, the Republicans hold a lot of Biden districts in both of these states. And that, I think that there are like 18 Republican representatives in Biden in districts that Joe Biden would have won in 2020, as opposed to like only five Democrats in districts Donald Trump would have won in 2020. So that gives Democrats a lot of room to grow, but there's also redistricting in the South in states like Alabama and Louisiana, which will benefit Democrats. The Supreme Court has ruled in Alabama that there's a need for a second majority black district to be drawn. There's a little bit of drama there since the GOP legislature didn't really want to draw it, but nonetheless, that applies to states like Louisiana as well, which will likely give Democrats, extra districts in the South, to be more proportional to the statewide, the percentage that the Democrats get in the statewide popular vote. So let's get into it. So as I was just talking about Alabama, we don't have a full redistricted map yet. Republicans currently hold 6 of the 7 seats, but Supreme Court, or the Federal Appeals Court, the Supreme Court, essentially the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that there must be a second majority black district, and the Republicans have not really, they created more of an opportunity district for black voters to elect a candidate. I think their new map had like a 40% black district. That's not a majority, so the court struck, the state court, or the federal appeals court. I'm not 100% familiar with the details, but the court handling it, said that that was a violation of the court order, and um, you know, though the governor Kay Ivey signed the new map into law, it's going to be reviewed, I think, next week, and most likely it will be overturned in Alabama. We'll have an independent map maker draw a district, a map with the second majority black district, and that'll give Democrats 2 seats in that state. Then in Alaska, though this is a red state, even though it's left trending, it's still pretty Republican and will vote for Trump. I'm very confident in that. But Mary Peltola is a very strong Democratic incumbent. She won her first race, last summer in a special election to fill Don Young's seat after he passed away. And, she defeated former Governor Sarah Palin in that. And then in 2022, as in the general election in November of last year, she won re-election by 10 points, a very strong margin. She has a lot of bipartisan support. Lisa Murkowski endorsed her, the senator from Alaska, very well known across the nation as being, very bipartisan. One of the more moderate Republicans in the U.S. Senate. So Alaska, Peltola, I think, is going to hang on, and I think that she will actually create some coattails for Biden instead of the other way around. Alaska doesn't like, more Trumpy Republicans. And then in Arizona, we have a couple districts here. The second, this was held by a Democrat, Tom O'Halloran. Eli Crane defeated him. It's a Trump plus 7 or Trump plus 8 seat. And, O'Halloran lost by that amount, roughly. I think Crane is, going to win re-election. That's pretty, I'm pretty confident in that, but I think it'll be under 15 for sure. So then we get to the two really competitive districts here. We have the first district, which is, a suburban seat in, the Phoenix area with David Schweikert, and we also have Juan Ciscomani down here in the southeastern part of the state. And I'm going to, we'll talk about Ciscomani first. I think that right now he will hold on. It's, pretty much a seat where Biden and Trump ran even in 2020. It's very competitive, and it is, Ciscomani won by about 2 points. Um, it's sorry, thought someone was talking to me, but yeah, Ciscomani won by about a point and a half, and yes, Arizona is more Republican down ballot, and I think Democrats are going to do well in the presidential and Senate races here, but Ciscomani I think has enough crossover support, and he's non-controversial enough to he's not too controversial, so I think he's going to hang on here narrowly. And then in Arizona, we have, and then in the first district, rather, we have David Schweikert, who is running for re-election. He, underperformed pretty badly compared to expectations. He only won by about a point. In a district Democrats didn't really target too heavily. It's a Biden seat, but, they weren't really expecting to win it, and they didn't, but, they came a lot closer than expected, and this district's very left trending. I think that Schweikert, not being a great incumbent, he's not terrible. I think he'll outrun Trump or DeSantis, whoever's the GOP nominee for president. Um, you know, but I think that he will lose. I think this is a lean D seat for right now. So that is our first pickup for the Democrats outside of Alabama. And then in Arkansas, we have enough. In California, there are a lot of seats here. Kevin Kiley. This could be lean. I'm going to put it as likely. I think, California is another state that's that's more Republican down ballot, but he'll probably win by 5 at this time. Josh Harder, uh, you know, he will probably, he'll win pretty handily. Then we get to the 13th district with John Duarte right here. This is a Biden plus 11 seat. It's right trending, but it had very low turnout in 2022. It and this 22nd seat, David Valadeo seat, these both had very low turnout compared to some other competitive seats. Hispanic turnout in the San Juan Valley, I believe is how you say it. Was very low in 2022, and that allowed Republicans, that gave Republicans a better shot at defeating Democrats here, excuse me, which they did. Now, while, this seat did shift right in 2020, I still think it's going to vote for Biden pretty handily. And Duarte, I'm not going to say that he, won just because of low turnout, but Adam Gray, the Democrat that he ran against, is running again, and I think that this time he's going to lose by, he's going to lose by a couple of points. I think Gray is going to win, by a lean margin. So yeah, I think that is a fair call to make. And then into the 22nd, David Valadeo is very well known as he's in a Biden plus 13 seat, but he has been able to win in this district in the past. But in 2022, while he did win, and while this was a district I got wrong, he didn't really defeat Rudy Salas. He didn't outrun the GOP nominee for governor by that much. And again, this was a low turnout year. I'm on the fence about this race. I think, it's going to be, a very close race, but Rudy Salas, his Democratic opponent, who's very strong, is running again. And, again, Salas ran about even with Gavin Newsom, despite going up against an overperformer like Valadeo, who's able to do a lot better than Trump in 2020. And I still think he'll outperform by quite a bit, but I think uh, there's only, Salas is a pretty decent candidate, And I think, Valadeo is going to succumb, is going to be, a victim of extreme partisanship, and I think that's just going to, cost him the race. Then in the 27th, Mike Garcia, a very strong incumbent, but he has been faced up against a weak challenger in all three of his elections. Christy Smith, she's not running again. George Whitesides, who I believe is a former businessman, is running in this seat. This is a suburban seat outside of Los Angeles. So, pretty competitive, but I still do believe that it is going to be, you know, it is going to go to Garcia narrowly. I don't want to bet against him. He's a pretty strong incumbent. I got his race right in 2022, but I didn't think he was going to win by, 6 points. That was a surprise. So I think Garcia right now does hold on, but you know, he's done a good job kind of moderating and kind of moving to the center. He was previously pretty right wing. But I think that uh, him being, with it being a presidential year is going to make it really hard for him to hold on. So there is a possibility that he loses. I'm just going to, stick with him because he's the incumbent right now. And then in the 40th district down here in Southern California, we have Young Kim's seat. She's, this is a right trending seat, but it did vote for Biden. Young Kim, though, is a very strong incumbent, has a lot of crossover appeal. She will win easily. I don't think there's much debate about that seat. Ken Calvert, though, he's a longtime incumbent. He has historically overperformed GOP candidates for GOP nominees for president. But he did pretty poorly in 2022. Another seat that wasn't really targeted that heavily by Democrats, and yet they came pretty close to winning it. And I didn't, call this a safe red seat. I was saying it would be likely red. Calvert won by about five, and he overperformed in his old district. He overperformed Trump by about 7 points in 2020, and before that it was a lot more. So I think that this district is pretty left trending. Will Rollins, the Democratic nominee in 2022, is running again. And I think that he is going to beat Calvert this time, although again, a very close race, one to really keep your eye out for. The 45th, Michelle Steele won by five. I think she wins again. She's running against, I think, Kim Nguyen, or Kim Huynh, who's a pretty strong candidate, I would say. But I want to stick with the incumbent here. I don't think, I'm going to bet against Steele just yet. If maybe this district does, become a toss-up, it's going to be competitive. But again, kind of similar to Young Kim's seat, it is a little bit right trending. Then in the 47th district, I don't know why I keep going down here and then going back up here, but to give you a good representation, this is where Michelle Steele's district is. You know what? We can go down here. Here we go. This is a better view of it. But yeah, now we have the 47th district. Katie Porter is retiring to run for Senate. I think that Democrats are still going to hold on here to Biden plus 11 seat. It's more Republican down ballot, but it is still a pretty Democratic seat. And I think that Porter, she was a great fundraiser, and yes, she did have a close race, but the Democrats look well positioned to hold this seat, especially in a presidential year. And then in the 49th, Mike Levin there was a lot of hype about him losing. I had him winning narrowly, and he won by more than Porter, which was surprising to me. I think a lot of people thought he was more endangered than Porter was. But nonetheless, this is a pretty blue seat. I think he'll be just fine. And then we go on to Colorado. We have two competitive districts here. First, the third district for Lauren Boebert and the eighth with Yadira Caraveo. I'm going to give Caraveo the advantage. I think that she won a narrow victory against Barbara Kirkmeyer. This was a seat that a lot of people thought was going to be a lot of people thought was going to be a bellwether for the House. It ultimately ended up going to the Democrats, even as they lost the House, which was surprising. Barbara Kirkmeyer, I think, is running again, and she's a strong candidate, but it's a pretty, it's pretty similar to this seat is pretty representative of the national environment. So, in Colorado was really good for Democrats last year. I think, it's a very left trending state. I think it's going to continue to trend left. But, I think Caraveo now being the incumbent is going to have a bit of an easier time, especially, now having the presidential election, and Joe Biden, winning Colorado by, very likely more than 15 points is, and, carrying this district is going to help her out. Then in the third, this is, a seat that surprised a lot of people. Lauren Boebert was expected to win by a lot more. And she ended up winning by just a couple hundred, just a couple thousand votes. It was a very close race, wasn't called for weeks, and Adam Frisch is running again. Now, in my last prediction, I did have Boebert losing because I thought that, she wasn't moderating, she wasn't, becoming she wasn't, she was probably going to be in a more democratic environment in 2024 compared to 2022. But I do think that right now, it being a presidential year and Democrats really having a really good opportunity, last year to take her out and ultimately coming up short, I think that, that's enough for me to say, you know what, I think Boebert is actually favored right here. Adam Frisch could absolutely win. It's a left trending seat, but with Trump being on the ballot or DeSantis, it just being a presidential election year means there'll be stronger rural turnout. And I think, Democrats, you know, going up, trying to win in a seat that Trump won by 8, he's probably going to win it by like 3 or 4. And I think Boebert's going to underperform him, by quite a bit, but I don't think it'll be enough to lose the seat. So I'm going to call it for Boebert right there. But again, I think an underrated pickup opportunity for Democrats. And then we go to Connecticut, where we have Johanna Hayes, who won by an underwhelming amount last year, but with it being a presidential year, and they're gonna do really well in Connecticut. I think that she's gonna hold on by like 3 or 4. So yeah, I'm not too concerned about her right there. In Delaware, Lisa Blunt Rochester is retiring to run for Senate. This could be likely. With it being an open seat, it was likely in 2022, but I think, either way it's going to go Democratic. I don't really see a point in making it likely. So, yeah. And then in Florida, we have a few competitive seats here. The 27th, I want to point out, Maria Salazar did win by just under 15. I think she wins by over 15 this time. Florida's a right trending state, especially, when it comes to the Miami area, the Miami-Dade area, that is. But I do think that, it is going I think 2022 was like the worst case scenario for Democrats, and I think that they are going to do better in some of these competitive districts compared to last time. But Salazar, I think, is going to win by 15 points, and even then, it was so close that I don't really see a point in making. It was so close to being safe that I don't see a point in moving it down to likely, but again, we'll have to see what happens. The seventh, I think, Corey Mills will win by a by a safe margin. Laura Lee will win by a safe margin. Darren Soto is probably going to win by, you know, a similar margin to last time. I think, this is a pretty democratic seat. Soto's a decent incumbent. I don't see him being, being too badly endangered. He did, a lot better than Charlie Crist did in this district in the governor's race and, Val Demings in the Senate race. The 13th, Anna Paulina Luna, not very popular. The Tampa area does have, I think, some upsides for Democrats, but I do think that, it's still a Trump plus 6 seat, I think. And, compared to some of these other swings, Paulina Luna did not really win by that much more than Trump did. You see the swings in like the 7th district, it was about a 12% swing, 10% swing in Soto's district, 14 in Lee's district. In Moskowitz, it was like a 9 point swing or 8 points. And then in Salazar's, it was over 15. So Luna did not do much better than Trump, in a state that was, pretty much universally more Republican than 2020, than in 2020. So I do think that she's going to, have a little bit of trouble, but she will win. And then in the 23rd, Jared Moskowitz had a bit of a scare last year, but I think that he is more than guaranteed to win. I think he wins by, 5 to 6 points. Then in Georgia, we have Sanford Bishop's seat. Not too surprising here. This is a right trending-ish area, but Bishop's very popular. He'll outperform Biden in this district, and Biden's going to carry it anyway. But then in the 6th district, this would be safe if it weren't for a redistricting case going on in Georgia right now, which makes it possible that there will be another the state legislature will be forced to draw another congressional map where they do include another black majority district, and that could endanger the Republican incumbent Rich McCormick, who ran in the seat. The After 2022, the Republicans forced 2 Democrats into this 7th district. Lucy McBath came out on top in the end, but the 6th district was the one that they gained from that. However, they could go, Democrats could get 6 seats like they previously had. So now we're going to Hawaii. There's nothing there. Idaho, nothing there. Illinois, a couple of seats here. So first, we have the 6th district. I've seen a lot of people put this as safe. I think Sean Casten's decent, but it's like a Biden plus 11 seat. I don't think it's gonna, I don't think and he won by like 9, or Casten won by 9, so I don't think he's going to win by 15 again. I think I'll put it as likely. The 14th district, Underwood's a decent incumbent. She'll win by a decent amount, and then, and the 13th, I think, will also become safe, and the 11th, which are both likely in 2022. Um, the 17th is the most competitive. Sorensen, he's in a right trending district, but I think he's strong enough to hold on. I predicted his race correctly. He won by 4. So I think that, maybe it's a little bit closer this time around, but, pretty gerrymandered map here in Illinois. I don't see Sorensen having too much of a problem, but stay tuned on that race. Indiana, Frank Mervin, I think, will do worse this time than he did in 2022. This is a right trending area, but I think he holds on. He's a pretty decent incumbent. He did a lot worse. He outperformed Biden in 2020 by a good amount, but he didn't do too well in 2022. He had a kind of a he ran a pretty poor campaign and only won by about 5 in this district, which I think is Biden plus 8. Yeah, Biden plus 8. So maybe he wins by a little bit less. I think it's a Republican pickup in it. The next couple, it'll flip Republican in sometime in the next few cycles. But um, either way, I think it stays with Democrats right now. Iowa, pretty Republican, delegation here. Republicans now hold all 3 seats. Hinson and Miller Meeks, I don't think they're going to have any trouble here. I'm sorry about the ads also here. I can't control them. They're kind of popping up without, any way for me to get rid of them. And then in the third, this is the most competitive one. Zach Nunn. This is a Trump plus 1 seat. Nunn won by a pretty, narrow amount, more less than I expected. Cindy Axne could run again, but she's, I don't know if she's announced if she's going to run again. I don't think she has last time I checked, but Nunn is a pretty good incumbent. I think Trump will win this district, and I think Nunn outperforms him overperforms him. I think he's a pretty decent candidate. I'm sorry if I'm slurring my words a little bit, but yeah, I'm just a little dehydrated. Should drink some water. I got some right here. But then we go to Kansas, and I was going to put Sharice Davids' district as safe. It practically is, but it is a Biden plus 5 district, so and it got more Republican in redistricting, so I think that it's going to be hard for Davids to win by, more than she did, or, to win by more than 15. She won by 12 in 2022, but again, she was running on a ballot with Laura Kelly. And I know governor's races are different than House races, but, we saw in New York that really did influence. That clearly had at least some influence on the House race. The governor's race had some influence on the House races. So I think in Kansas, it becomes more left trending. I think Davids, probably does better than Biden in this district, but still falls short of 15. But again, not a seat that really, that Republicans really should be contesting at this point. This Kentucky, I think there's some talk about there needing to be another black majority district, but I don't see if so, maybe they'd try to maybe the congressional map would be redrawn to make Andy Barr's district into a more Democratic district. So, keep an eye out for that. I won't put it as likely because I don't really think it's as big of a redistricting case as like Georgia, but in Louisiana, I do think it has a similar situation as to Alabama. The U.S. Supreme Court decided not to intervene in the legal case surrounding Louisiana, basically, and the before they ruled on that, the appeals court dealing with this dispute about the congressional map concluded that there was a need for a second black majority district, and I think that there will be, with the Supreme Court not intervening, not basically not saying, they weren't as strict as they were with the Alabama case, but they're also allowing the process to continue. So I think Louisiana is going to, get a second black majority district, probably including some of the districts or some of the counties here on the border with the Mississippi River. And that will probably, this is Julia Letlow seat, so I think this will probably be the second black majority districts. Also, something could happen with Garrett Graves, but you never know. Then oh wait, I just clicked on Georgia. It sends me back up to the top, which is confusing. We go to Maine. Jared Golden is going to win again. This could be a likely seat. it's been, he's won by likely margins, twice. He's, a very good incumbent, has won, in this Republican leaning district for quite some time. It's more Democratic down ballot. And yeah, I did, predict Golden would lose in 2022, but I wasn't too confident about that, and ultimately I was wrong. So I think, Golden was originally considered a potential candidate for Senate if Angus King retired, but of course that's not happening. And Golden is more likely than not going to run for re-election. I think he might run for Senate, sometime down the line, maybe, if King retires in 2030, or, maybe he'll go after Susan Collins' seat in 2026, but I think right now Golden is likely to win again in the House. I think it's pretty obvious that he's going to win. I'm just going to put it as lean because it's a presidential year, but again, it could be likely. And then in Maryland, Andy Harris's district, it's practically safe, but again, it was only decided by about 11 points in 2022. He underperformed Trump here, and yeah, it was pretty bad year for Republicans in Maryland. Go figure, it's a blue state. I think with Trump or DeSantis being the candidate on the ballot, that'll increase rural turnout, but I think overall Harris wins by less than 15. And then in the 6th district, David Trone's retiring to run for Senate, but I don't really see that making this race too competitive. It's a Biden plus 10 seats, so not too much to talk about there. Massachusetts, nothing there. It's all safe blue. Michigan, we have a couple seats. The fourth is only, this one's likely because, it's like Trump plus four or something. I want to see. Yeah, it's Trump plus four, and Bill Huizenga's a good incumbent. He might run for Senate, which can make this seat more competitive, but even if he doesn't, I think he wins by less than 15. The third, this used to be Peter Meyer's seat before he lost renomination to John Gibbs, and then Hillary Schulten won the seat. I was going to put this as a safe blue seat, but it is it's pretty consistently left trending. It's Biden plus 8, so I could see Schulten winning by more than 15. I think she's a very good incumbent, but either way, the seat is going to vote for a Democrat. I'm just, thinking it'll be under 15. I think it'll be a similar margin to last time. Michigan again was very good for Democrats in 2022, which makes some of the predictions here. I think like in the 8th district, I think Dan Kildee is going to win, but he's going to probably win by less than he did in 2022. I don't think he's going to win by 11 or 10 like last time. So I think he'll win by like 6 or 7. But still outperform Biden, of course. So yeah, Kildee wins. And then we have the two more competitive seats here with Slotkin and James's seats. Slotkin's retiring to run for Senate, which makes this seat pretty competitive. It's Biden plus 1. Slotkin won it by 5, but she did underperform Gretchen Whitmer. But again, pretty much every Michigan Democrat underperformed Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan. She was kind of the governor's race was really the top of the ticket, and that was one of the best performances. Besides I think it was besides the Secretary of State's race, the best. It had the best margin for Democrats. I think Slotkin, she's going to help Democrats win the seat back. I think she will be the Senate nominee. If not, it's Hill Harper, and either way, I think Democrats are favored in that Senate race. With Michigan being a blue-leaning state. The Slotkin district, I think, will stay blue. There's a decent number of Democrats lining up to run for it, and the guy who ran for it last time on the Republican side, Tom Barrett, who's not a great candidate, is running again. So I think that is a narrow district for the Democrats. It's could flip Republican though. And then in the 10th district we have John James's seat, and James, he barely won last time. A lot less than I was lower on his chances than most people. A lot of people thought he was going to win by like 7 or 8. I thought he'd win by 5, and he won by like half a point. So very, very, underwhelming performance, especially against a candidate like Carl Marlinga, who had like no money, no support from the national, Democratic, committee or the DCCC. So I think James with it, I think that Marlinga did get helped out by Democrats just doing so well in Michigan last year because of the abortion referendum, and also just it was a terrible environment for Republicans in Michigan because of that referendum, and also just because of their candidates. I think James, could lose. It's a Trump plus 1 seat, but I think he will win re-election. I think he's the favorite right now. I'm going to call him the favorite. Then in the first district, I know a lot of people have this as safe. I think Brad Finstad's a clear favorite, but I think he wins by less than 15. And then in the second district, Angie Craig, will she's an underperformer, but she's still a very strong incumbent. The seat is Biden plus 7. Craig won by 5, which is not too far off from where I had her. This was a seat that a lot of people thought was going to flip just because the Green Party would take away a lot of votes from Democrats, but that did not really happen in 2022, and I don't think it's going to happen again in 2024. See, I think Craig holds on. Mississippi, nothing there. Missouri, and Wagner's seat is going to stay Republican, but it'll be a little bit closer. It won't be over 15. It's a Trump plus 7 seat. I think I voted for Wagner by 12. It was a little bit close. It was pretty close in the Senate race between Eric Schmidt and Trudy Bush Valentine. It could be, it'll probably be close, between Josh Hawley and Lucas Coons in the Senate race, but Wagner is an overperformer. She would be just fine. Then in Montana, this is an interesting seat. There are a lot of, converging, or there are a lot of different opinions. This is a pretty polarizing district. It's Trump plus 6, but Ryan Zinke, he was rumored as a Senate candidate before he threw his support, but via behind Tim Sheehy, but I think he's going to run for re-election. He's clearly not running for Senate. And Monica Tranel, his previous Democratic opponent, is running again. She did very well last year, despite there being like no enthusiasm on the Democratic side, no statewide race to draw them out in Montana. And Zinke only won by 3 points. He's pretty unpopular. And John Tester being on the ticket, even if he loses re-election, he's going to carry this district. And that doesn't mean Zinke's going to lose. I currently have him as favored, but I think it's a toss up. And I think, right now I will just call Zinke the incumbent because, I think Trump will carry him over the finish line in this district. Although, again, Montana is not a great state for Trump and his candidates. And Republicans are going to have trouble in that Senate race. They're going to have to really fight for that if they want to win it, and that could cause them some problems in the first district as well. Then in Nebraska, Don Bacon's a very strong incumbent, but this is a Biden plus 6 seat, and he did not really overperform the GOP nominee for governor. In terms of the margin in this seat, kind of similar to David Valadao. I think if Trump loses this seat by like 6 or 7, it's going to be hard for Bacon to overperform because again you know, he's he had a really bad opponent in 2020, which I think is part of the reason why he did, so much better and won by 5, while Trump lost the district by 7. But again, this district's left trending, and it's suburban. I think Bacon, he's relatively moderate, but he's not super moderate, and I think he's currently an underdog to his Democratic, when he's faced up against his Democratic challenger Tony Vargas. So Bacon, I think, does lose re-election, although again, not too sure about that. That's going to be a toss-up all the way through the end. Then in Nevada, I think all 3 of these seats are likely. They were all pretty good for Democrats in 2022. I got the third district wrong with Susie Lee, but originally I didn't really think this was a Democratic gerrymander. But looking back on it, I mean, if you look at the margins here, Biden plus 9, Biden plus 7, Biden plus 8, and Nevada's a pretty stagnant state. It didn't have great turnout for Democrats last year, which is part of the reason why Republicans won the House popular vote here, but they still lost these 3 districts. And also, they did very well in the second with Marco Mode, but again, that's only that seat, which is Republican anyway. So I think all 3 of these seats vote Democratic. Yeah, that is it. And then in New Hampshire, Ann Custer is going to win by a likely margin. Chris Pappas, if he faces a strong opponent, it could be lean, but again, it's a Biden plus 5 seat. I think Pappas is pretty popular. That kind of sounded a little weird there, a little bit of a pun, but either way, I think New Hampshire is going to stick with with the Democrats. Not too much to say there. New Jersey, Josh Gottheimer, I think, is in a likely Democratic race. He's pretty popular, and I don't think that there's much to say about it. The seventh, though, this is Tom Keene's seat. He beat out Democratic incumbent Tom Malinowski. This is a Biden plus 4 seat. It's left trending. It's suburban. Keene was, and Malinowski was not a great incumbent, which makes the case for Keene to potentially be vulnerable, and I think he is. But Democrats, Malinowski's not going to run again, which in a sense is a blessing, but also a curse because now they have to find another candidate to prop up, another notable name. I think right now Keane being, kind of presenting himself as a moderate and not being really beholden to, um, you know, uh, you know, or being somewhat bipartisan, and having that image, and also, his last name, he's the son of the former, governor of New Jersey is going to help him out, and so I think that even if Biden wins this district by more, in 2024, which I do think is what's going to happen, I still think that he will win. I still think Keene wins, but again, a debatable one at that. This video is going on pretty long. I didn't realize how long it was going, but anyway, New Mexico, the first district, Stansbury is going to win. The second district, this could get redistricted, because, there's a potential, this was another gerrymandered seat, and Yvette Herrell lost her reelection. I think Gabe Vasquez does win reelection if the map stays the same, but again, there's some debate about whether or not that's going to change. Yvette Herrell, the former incumbent for this district, is running again, but I still think she loses under this new map. Vasquez is a pretty strong candidate. I didn't give him the credit that he deserved in 2022. I said he was a weak candidate. He proved me wrong. Then in New York, this is another state where Democrats look likely to redraw the maps to be more favorable to them, even though really the reason, if we're being honest, the reason why they lost in 2022 was because they had such a poor performance, on the governor's ballot, on the governor, in the governor's race, rather, with Kathy Hochul. But Nick LaLota and Andrew Garbarino are in likely Republican seats. Maliotakis also on Staten Island, I think, is going to remain safe unless Democrats do gerrymander her seat. George Santos, he is doomed either in the general election or in the primary. He could lose the primary very, easily. I think right now I'm just going to say he wins the primary just for the sake of it. But either way, I think Democrats win, this seat pretty handily. Again, they can't take it for granted. If they want to win, they actually have to make an effort because, then if everyone thinks it's going to be, a pickup no matter what. No one's going to come out to vote for them, and that's going to be a problem for Democrats. But I do think that, Democrats are lining up a good number of candidates to challenge Santos, and even if he's not the nominee, he's really screwed over Republicans here. I think that if Santos is on the ballot, he could potentially underperform Trump, which would be kind of not, which would be different, compared to how I think some of these other districts, some of these other New York House Republicans would do compared to Trump. Anyways, the fourth district, this is a Biden plus 15 seat, or 14 seat. Either way, it's pretty democratic. Anthony Desposito is a good incumbent, but I don't think he's good enough to win. I think, Long Island's right trending, but not right trending enough to really give Desposito a chance to win. Or he has a chance. I mean, it's a lean district. It's not a guaranteed flip. Even George Santos's district, I would argue, I would struggle against saying is a guaranteed flip, although that's a lot more likely. So Desposito, I think, is going to lose re-election, although it is going to be close. Pat Ryan is going to win again. He won in 2022. Was the pretty much the only. He was the only Democrat to win a competitive House race in New York. Um, and I think that he could win honestly by a likely margin. But right now, I'll just keep it as lean. The 25th, Joseph Morell, he'll win by a likely margin as well. And then in these three districts, Lawler, he's a decent incumbent. Sean Patrick Maloney was a, not a great incumbent, but not terrible. He had a lot of, baggage with his, how he, forced Mondaire Jones out of this district. I think Mondaire Jones is running again, and he's going to probably be the nominee. It could also be, Liz Whitmer, Gretchen Whitmer's sister, who takes on Lawler. Either way, I think, this district is left trending, and I think Biden winning it against likely winning it, at the top of the ticket is really going to hurt Lawler and make it hard for him to hold on. Molinaro is a good candidate, but considering how likely it is the Democrats gerrymander the seat, or gerrymander this, the map, it's probably going to be impossible for him to hold on. Or not impossible, but if we're working on the old map, he still did underperform in the special election, and while I did get his race wrong in 2022, he still, didn't do that well compared to other Republicans in New York. Not a lot of, compared to the Long Island Republicans, none of these, Free, Lawler, Molinaro, or Williams did that well. And speaking of Williams, I think he's, of these three, the most endangered. He's, running in a Biden plus eight seat. John Katko was the former incumbent here. He decided to retire after he voted to convict Trump and, in his second impeachment trial. And I think Williams is not a great candidate. He could win again. This seat is more Republican down ballot. But I think that Democrats are going to flip it narrowly. They had problems in 2022. In North Carolina, there's going to be redistricting. I think, there's the Supreme Court ruled against the independent state legislature theory, which basically was a theory that was thrown around by lawyers working with Trump to overturn the 2020 election that um that a state legislature should have complete and total authority over the districts, and that failed. So I think North Carolina, we're going to see kind of a small Republican gain. I think Kathy Manning and Don Davis will hold on, especially Davis, because I think the Republicans are going to be scared to take away another black majority seat, considering how that has failed for Republicans in Alabama and Louisiana. But I think Wiley Nickel and Jeff Jackson will get drawn out. So yeah, but again, we'll have to wait and see for redistricting. North Dakota, that's safe Republican. Ohio, this is another state with redistricting. I think Copter's going to win again. She won by a pretty impressive amount in 2022. I don't think she wins by the same amount again. It's a right trending district, but I would be, I would be crazy to think that she's not favored right now. The first district, this could get drawn into a safe Democratic district, but going off the map, we'll just put it as lean D right now. Greg Landsman, though, I think is a strong favorite right now. Steve Chabot's not going to run again. He's already said that. The 13th, I think, is the one that's really, the most endangered for Democrats. It's right trending. Amelia Sykes is a decent incumbent, though, and the Madison Gestachio Gilbert is running again. She was the Republican nominee against Sykes in 2022, and she lost by 5 points, which was, this was another seat that I got wrong, and I was pretty surprised that I got it wrong. Um, but I think Sykes is going to hold on again, although, again, this seat, depending on how it's redistricted, it could flip Republican, but right now we'll call Sykes the favorite. Oklahoma, nothing there. Oregon, I think, Democrats are going to improve their relative to their 2022 performance. In the fifth, there was a lot of drama about, there was a lot of drama, going on on the Democratic side with Kurt Schrader losing renomination and then Jamie McLeod Skinner, alienating a lot of Democrats and, Republicans doing very well in the governor's race. So I think Shabazz DeRimmer does lose this time with Schrader deciding not to run again, and Democrats, likely to pick a better candidate than McLeod Skinner, but you never know. We'll have to see. She could win. It's a toss-up, but I think Biden, it being a Biden district and being a bluer year makes it likely that Republicans will lose that seat. In Pennsylvania, Brian Fitzpatrick could lose renomination, and that would make this seat most likely a Democratic pickup because his opponent is very, very pro MAGA and would not do well in this suburban seat. But Fitzpatrick, I'm going to assume, is going to hold on. Perry, I think, will hold on as well. He's an overperformer, but he probably won't do super well. In Pennsylvania 17th, this is a Biden plus 6 district. Delugio won by 7. I think he'll win by a little bit less this time. Pretty similar to Biden, overall winning this district. I think he'll underperform Biden, but, I think Biden wins it by enough to guarantee, or to not guarantee, but to give Delugio more than a 5-point margin of victory. And then in the 8th and the 7th, these are very competitive seats. I think Susan Wild and Matt Cartwright hold on. Cartwright is in a bit of a pickle with his seat being right trending and, the Scranton area shifting right. But I think he will be able to hold on very, very narrowly. And so will Susan Wild, I think. So, yeah, Rhode Island, there's, Alan Fung's probably not going to run again. If he does, this, Magaziner's seat could be competitive. But so far, I've, decided to move it up to safe. I had it as likely before in case Fung does run, but it doesn't look like he's going to. South Carolina, there's, some redistricting drama here as well. Nancy Mace's seat was, has been, you know, called into question as to whether or not it's gerrymandered. So they could they will probably draw a more competitive seat there, like it was, like the seat that elected her in 2020. and that will make it more competitive. Mace could lose re-election if it's, pretty Democratic, but right now we're just going to say it's lean Republican. South Dakota, nothing there. Tennessee, Republicans gerrymandered the seat in Nashville to basically force the former Democratic incumbent Jim Cooper to retire, and so they were able to pick off the seat by splitting Nashville up. Andy Ogles is probably going to win, although again, this is a left trending seat. It still has some of Nashville in it, just not enough to make it a super blue seat. And then in Texas, the Rio Grande Valley is really what we're watching here, although Beth Van Dyne's seat could be somewhat competitive. It could, it's like Trump plus 12, and it's pretty suburban, pretty left trending. And the 23rd, Tony Gonzalez is also, facing a primary challenge, so he could, lose that, and then the Democrats could have, a better than expected performance there. But we're not focusing on that. We're focusing on these free South Texas seats. Monica De La Cruz probably going to win again by a pretty strong margin. And then the 28th and 34th, I'm going to move up to likely. Cuellar, this seat could be in danger if he loses renomination, but he's been pretty resilient in terms of being able to hold on. He's defeated Jessica Cisneros twice, and he's pretty popular in this district. I think he, does pretty well. Vicente Gonzalez is going to run against Myra Flores again. Well, Gonzalez hasn't announced his campaign, but he's pretty much, it's very likely that he runs. And Myra Flores, the former congresswoman from the seat, who got paired up with Gonzalez into this seat last year to run against him. Gonzalez didn't run a good campaign, but he still won by more than I expected. So I think that he wins by, high single digits. Utah, I think there's been some redistricting drama here because Republicans did technically make this, the fourth district a little, too Republican, but either way, I don't think there's a serious chance it gets, redistricted. Vermont, again, at large, not competitive at all. Virginia, Rob Whitman's seat will probably be under 15. Not too much to talk about there. The 10th, Jennifer Wexton is not going to have to deal with Hung Kao again because he's running against Tim Kaine, and he'll probably, he's almost guaranteed to lose against Kaine, but he could play it. He's probably the GOP's, one of their best hopes to, make that race competitive. And Wexton's not great for this seat. She's an underperformer, but she gets the job done, and she did defeat Barbara Comstock for, all that it's worth. The seventh, I was going to put this as likely, but Abigail Spanberger has been rumored to run for governor. I do think that she is, going to run for governor because she is, the most, or she, the Politico articles, that predict that, the Politico reports are pretty accurate. When it comes to, incumbents or, politicians running for other, allegedly running for other offices before they announce. So I think that Spanberger is going to run for governor, and that means that she's going to give up her seat. That seems to be the plan. But again, nothing official yet. The second, Jen Kiggans might be in some trouble if black turnout goes up, which I mean, it's very likely to. It's a presidential year. And Elaine Luria, she was an okay incumbent, but Kiggans was also a decent challenger, and I think she's going to win again. I think, just being the incumbent here, but it is a Biden plus free seat if Republicans really drop the ball in Virginia with Trump and, losing to Kaine by a lot, that could doom Kiggans, but right now I'm going to call her a narrow favorite. And then in Washington, we have Kim Schreier's seat. Biden, I think it's Biden plus 7. Yeah, just about, and she's, pretty much ran even. And then Marie Glueson Perez is a pretty strong incumbent. She, was able to defeat Joe Kent, who's running again in this district. And I think that she is going to do pretty well. I think that, Jamie Herrera Butler could run for the seat again, and if she wins that, if she makes it to the general election, she would probably beat Perez, but right now it looks like, she hasn't really made any, you know, any serious, bid for it. Also, Jay Inslee is retiring from the governor's office, so Herrera Butler could run for that. Either way, I think Perez faces off against Kent and wins. It's a left trending seat. It's only Trump plus 4. Trump will probably win it by a little bit less, and Perez, I think, will win against Kent again. And then finally in Wisconsin, we'll go to West Virginia really quickly. There's nothing there, but there's an open seat. Alex Mooney is retiring to run for Senate. And then in Wisconsin, I'm going to give both of these seats to the Republicans by lean margins, but again, we don't know if Democrats are going to, the liberal Supreme Court, state Supreme Court is going to force the state legislature or is going to order the map to be redrawn, which could give Democrats, 4 seats to the Republicans 4. So as you can see in this final map that I have in my prediction, I do have Democrats winning 224 seats to the Republicans 211. I don't know why I'm not able to get out of this map. Here we go. Let me go up, show you a nationwide view of everything. Here we go. So sorry this video was like 50 minutes long. I really spent a long time on some of those early districts. I am sorry that I did that. But either way, not much longer than the typical House prediction video. Tell me what you guys think. Do you think, the Democrats are going to win, back control the House like me? Some of this does depend on redistricting, so we'll have to see what the full maps look like. I'm very confident this won't be my final prediction, and these House races are they're very difficult to predict. But what do you guys think? Do you think Democrats are going to be able to flip back the House, or do you think Republicans are going to be able to hold on to the House? Do you think some more states are going to be forced to draw on new congressional maps? Do you think New York or California is going to, how do you guys think the seats in each of these competitive states are going to go? Let me know in the comments down below. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and share it with someone share the video with someone who you think would enjoy it. It really does help me out a ton. Helps to expand my channel, and I would really appreciate it if you do that. And check out my non-political channel, Interactor127, and my comrades channel, GrowlingZoo666. And thank you guys so much for all your support. I'll see you guys next time when I talk about all things politics. See ya.